Amy, who are you looking for?
Jamie.
Jamie.
No, I'm sorry.
So guys, it is a rally.
Michelle.
So it's not a press
Michelle
conference.
Young.
Feel free to
The
rah
kid
rah.
told me that she
Okay, rah-rah, got it.
Okay.
The kid told me her speaker dropped out.
Okay, so no Michelle. And then Prosecutor Curry's here. There.
That's right, we were downstairs.
I was like, everybody keep telling me you're in the back, and then I kept getting distracted from you in the back. Okay.
Do you have a face for them?
Oh, I'm just
David, okay. We ready to get started?
Yep. So I think it's
All right, okay. All right, everybody, we're going to get started. And if there are seats, please feel free to grab them and fill them up. My name is Amy Nelson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Fair Housing Center of Central Indiana, as well as we have launched the Central Indiana Alliance Against Hate. We're here today to rally for passage of a hate crime law here in Indiana. Indiana simply cannot remain one of only 5 states without a comprehensive hate crime law. So we have a very lovely and wonderful group of speakers here today, and I will be your moderator for the day. And then at the end, we'll also give you some call to action type items. As we are speaking today, please just be conscious of not trying to cross in front just because we're a little packed up here. But also remember at the end that we do have a resource table where you can grab more information about why we need a hate crime law, as well as some resources to show your support in that capacity. So with that, we are going to get started because I am so excited to hear some of these speakers, some of whom I have not heard speak previously. With that, I want to start first with David Sklar of the Indianapolis Jewish Community Relations Council. David.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Give yourselves a round of applause for coming out in this cold weather and being here for such an important issue. The Jewish community is standing behind this issue, as we have been for a number of years now, because it's time that Indiana remove itself from the list of 5 states that does not have a hate crime statute. Woo! The Jewish community, both here in Indiana, is the #1 target of religiously motivated bias crimes, and we say no more. We're here every day working with legislators, and there is a growing sense of optimism here in the State House every day. More and more legislators on both sides of the aisle are standing up and saying, this is the year to pass hate crimes legislation. We want to thank those legislators that have been out front on this issue this year and in previous years. We have Representative Greg Porter, who's with us here from Indianapolis. Senator Greg Taylor, who I see standing in the back of the room. These 2 gentlemen, year after year after year, have been here at the General Assembly saying it is time to pass this legislation. We want to thank Senator Sue Glick, who's been a champion of this legislation and has introduced legislation for the last 3 years. And thank her colleagues that have joined her this year, both Senator John Ruckelshaus and Senator Grooms, who have both signed on to the legislation this year. And we want to thank legislative leadership who, again, more and more are saying every day that this is the time to pass hate crimes legislation. This is the year. So we want to just thank those folks. And let's get out. We're going to have action alerts, and we're going to have things for everybody to do. It's time for the community to come together. You're going to hear these wonderful voices behind me today, and it's time that we all stand together and pass hate crimes law in Indiana. Thank you.
Next, I want to introduce Prosecutor Curry of the Marion County Prosecutor's Office.
Good morning. I just have to say that I am really glad that this rally is indoor and not on the steps of the Capitol. Obviously, we have been part of this effort for the third year now. And in my role as a prosecutor and our fellow prosecutors, we support a passage of a bias crime bill because we want to, number one, we recognize that a crime that's motivated by hate is not only a crime against the individual victim, but is intended to be a message of terrorism and intimidation against an entire group of individuals. And so, as we have asserted in the past, and we argue again this year in support of this bill, we as a state need to send a countervailing message that we will not accept that sort of conduct. And from the prosecutor's perspective, having a hate crime bill gives the court explicit authority to impose additional punishment if a crime is motivated by bias or hate. But that's my prosecutor hat. And as I thought about this morning, as a citizen, as a resident of the state of Indiana, I think from my perspective the message is this, and that is that we will not tolerate this sort of conduct directed against an individual because of their religion, because of their race, their sexual orientation, because of disability. And by passing a hate crime bill, we need to send the message, we will send the message that sisters and brothers, we've got your back. Thanks.
This is going to be a common theme as we go through today, me lowering the mic when I speak. So next up is Alia Almond with the Muslim Alliance of Indiana.
First of all, thank you all for coming out here today to rally behind this. The best among you are those who wish for their brother what they wish for themselves. This is a rule that all Muslims live by and that Islam teaches. How many of us wish to fear telling someone our name because it's pronounced a little differently? I don't think any of us do. How many of us are afraid to speak in public because we sound a little bit different? How many of us fear that our children will be bullied or singled out at school because of who their parents are? I think we can all agree that none of us wish that upon ourselves or anyone we care about. According to a report released by the FBI in 2016, the percentage of anti-Muslim or anti-Islamic hate crimes increased by 19% from the previous year. And the total number of reported hate crimes actually surpassed what was reported just after 9/11. And those are just the numbers against Muslims. As you can see by my allies all around me, hate affects more people than we can even begin to realize. Hate crime legislation is not simply about the number of incidents or violent acts. It is about telling our Hoosier neighbor, you are safe, you can celebrate yourself and who you are without fear. Woo! After all, that is the American dream. Thank you.
Next, someone who's been working with us for several years on hate crime legislation, Tim Brown of the Indy Chamber. Tim?
Thank you. The Indy Chamber has been firmly supportive of hate crime legislation. Our business leaders led the way with advocating for the Human Rights Ordinance to be passed locally in 2005, participated in responses to RFRA, and launched campaigns such as Indy Welcomes All. The business community knows a more welcoming, inclusive community ultimately is a better community. We want all businesses, both domestically and internationally, to know that we will stand to protect all. Yeah. Our businesses can't afford to lose talent, Because of this perception, our schools can't afford to lose the diversity that stimulates our educational environment, and our city cannot afford to miss out on trade shows and conventions because we don't want to allow for the protection which would serve as an aggravator to our criminal code to deter intolerance.
Woo!
The Indiana Code has a list of aggravators that the General Assembly has deemed so egregious that if the facts of the case warrant, the judge has the ability to sentence higher in regards to the underlying offense. The business community thinks that bias-motivated crimes are similar to, if not more egregious, as many of those current aggravators, so it should be added to that list. Some say aggravators don't matter, but whenever you give the judge the ability to weigh the actions of the case and determine whether an individual will get a harsher penalty, it has to matter. Now it's time to be bold enough to stand for the aggravator to hate crime actions. If we cannot stand for the basic laws that preserve the dignity of all, then we don't even need any aggravators. Although the Indiana region is projected to grow faster than any other metro in Indiana, we are struggling to compete with similarly situated metros in other large U.S. regions, such as Denver, Nashville, Columbus. Ironically, those similarly situated regions have continued to outpace central Indiana, but they also have hate crimes legislation on their books and have done rather well in attracting talent and businesses to their region. In fact, Indiana shares this distinction with being one of 5 states, Georgia, Arkansas, South Carolina, and Wyoming, who don't have a law such as Senate Bill 418. Georgia has legislation being proposed this year to potentially remove them from the list. So in similar fashion, I urge that the Indiana General Assembly to remove our state from this list too. Join the Indy Chamber in its support of passage of Senate Bill 418 as a bias-motivated crimes legislation. Thank you.
Next, I want to welcome Rajesh Naik.
My name is Rajesh, and I run a small business on the northwest side of Indianapolis. Last year, somewhere around, I think it was September, middle of September, somebody just vandalized our office, both in the front side and the back. They basically wrote all kinds of nasty things about the faith that I practice. And we were shocked. It took us a few minutes to realize why somebody would do that to us. We were just going about our daily lives, running a small business, living a good life here in America. But anyway, it happened, and since then we've got a lot of support from both our business neighbors, our neighborhood where we live, and especially the Hindu Temple of Central Indiana. Anita has been very cooperative. She's been trying to focus efforts on this issue. I met David a couple of days ago. I met Representative Porter a couple of days ago. They've been very, very supportive. And I want to ensure that all of you show the same kind of support to this bill. Thank you.
As we go through our speaking list today, I hope you'll see the broad representation that we have in supporting hate crime legislation. Next, I want to introduce Elizabeth Longcore of the Indiana Statewide Independent Living Council. Elizabeth?
I feel like this would be more fun if I had a tunnel to run through, but that's okay. My name is Elizabeth Longcore. As Amy said, I am a person with a disability in addition to the parent of a child with a disability. I am the Director of Public Policy, Systems Advocacy, and Special Projects for the Indiana Statewide Independent Living Council, which is the federally designated representative of people with disabilities in the state of Indiana. I'm really excited, I just have to say, to see so many people here today. I was part of the press conference that we had earlier, so this is amazing. So thank you guys for coming out. Thank you. So I am an incredibly socially awkward person, and so I actually don't enjoy doing scripted things. So when I heard today was a rally and I get to just kind of go off script and be impromptu, I was excited. I don't know so much about the people that know me and are probably clenching themselves a little tighter right now. So I'm going to try to make this a little more interactive. How many, by show of hands, either are identify as a person with a disability yourself or know of someone close to you that has a disability? Okay. How many of you have ever been in a car accident or a sports injury or know of someone else that might have sustained such? How many of you have had surgery in your lifetime that momentarily maybe debilitated you while you were going through rehab? While you guys look around, one thing that I'm really trying to emphasize, the point today, is even though we have so many amazing people that are here today to speak and represent their different communities, myself included, I also belong to multiple communities that are represented up here. So when we see that, if we're visual people, sometimes we get so tunnel vision and focus on it being very just categorical and a dissected issue. Oh, this affects that group, or that affects that group. This is their religion, or this is their race, or that's not something that I identify with. And so because we then use this umbrella term of minority groups, we think, well, that doesn't apply to me, so why would this be important? We already have rules on the book that protect these individuals, so why would we need those enhanced protections? So let me try to bring to you a different perspective. I'm not telling you we should do this, but trying to explain more of the why behind it. People with disabilities comprise the largest minority group in the world. The disability population is also unique in that it is the only categorical group that every single person, present company included, will at some point in your lifetime obtain membership to, whether that's permanently or temporarily through congenital birth, maybe it's accident or illness, or even just the common normal process of aging. I have a daughter, she's 10 now, but I remember when she was younger, when we would discuss different supports that her grandmother needed, she didn't think of her in the context of her grandma now being a person with a disability. She just considered her old. Being old isn't a diagnosis. There's actual things that happen as human beings when we get older that will require supports in your lifetime that you may not necessarily need right now. So when we're hearing and listening to all of these speakers behind me, I please just urge you and encourage you to have an open mind and realize that this really does impact everybody. Now, specific to the disability community also, we are also unique in that we are also the one categorical group that has the most unreported, undocumented, and unprosecuted bias crimes against our community than any other group. And there's a multitude of reasons of why that happens. Despite the overwhelming prevalence of people that are affected by this, as you all have just demonstrated yourself, again, the crimes and disabilities that do have hate as a motivating factor are treated differently in the disability community because when in comparison to maybe another group, we have this societal attitude in our culture that somehow having a disability makes us less than. We're less than human. There's something wrong with us. You know, we're not even worthy of being on the books because we're just a vulnerable population. So that's pretty much our fault for being an easy target for other people. Well, that is absolutely ridiculous. I would like to hear you use that explanation and logic for any other group behind me and stop leaving people with disabilities out of these conversations that are happening. Just to give you an example, for statistics, we'll just say the violent sexual assault against females with disabilities that particularly have intellectual disabilities, 97% of these individuals at some point in their lifetime will experience this. 97%. Of that 97%, only 3% of those will ever actually get reported. And part of the reason for that, again, is the mislabeling and mischaracterizing of what happens to individuals in our community. So even though we have rules already that are on the books, these are sometimes viewed as abuse and neglect and how they're characterized, again, instead of recognizing it for what it is and the bias that motivated the perpetration of that crime against that person. So in order to truly understand the full magnitude of why hate crimes protections are needed in regards to this population, it is also imperative as we go through this process and we're listening to all of the individuals up here and learning more about the reasons for needing this during the legislative process in the General Assembly, we need to also understand the many ways in which these crimes manifest themselves differently when they do target people with disabilities. So just because you are not aware of it or know of it does not mean that they don't exist. And so I hope today, like I said, I'm excited to see everybody here, and I hope that we can all come together as one community and really urge you all to contact your legislators, contact your representatives, and really try to educate them on why this is important and affects everyone. Thank you.
Next, Michelle Young, please. Michelle? Not here. I'm sorry. Our next speaker is Gurinder Khalsa of Six Pack.
Good morning, Hoosiers. Welcome. Welcome to the State House. It's a place where we deserve to be here, to be heard. Good news is that recently we all know that majority of Hoosiers, they really want this bill to be passed. Over majority of Hoosiers, recent surveys shows that. Thank you. My name is Gurinder Singh Khalsa. I represent the Sikh community. We've been in this country for over 100 years. Since 9/11, Sikhs been one of the most common target of sectarian violence, hate crime, bullying in the schools. We need to come forward for this bill because this covers three things. Every Hoosier, every human being needs three things: economic opportunities, safety and security, respect and dignity. It covers all the three aspects. If we have this puzzle to be solved, where we are only one of the 5 states, literally we are maybe only one state because few other states, they may not need that. So we need for the economic opportunity of this great state, because there are many companies, they do not want to invest or bring jobs here in this state because of this hate crime bill or law is not here. If we have that, we'll have better opportunities. Number 2, what I'm talking about, this safety and security, it covers every Hoosier. It's not a special group or one group or Sikh or Hindu or Muslim or Jews. It covers every Hoosier, and they need safety and security. Number 3, every human being deserve dignity and respect. And if we cannot see God in all, we cannot see God at all. So we need to respect. And we deserve, if I deserve respect for myself, I deserve respect and dignity to my fellow Hoosier as well. In addition to that, we need to not only pass these hate crime bills, we need to also add where states should have more efforts for the awareness of all those minorities or those special groups, those people not aware of. Because hate is what? People look at us and they don't know who we are. Fear is of unknown, and moment we know somebody, fear is gone. We need to expedite our more efforts on the awareness of our fellow communities. Those people do not know. We need to have additional those kind of efforts as well. Along with this, now the good news is we are all here. We are all majority of Hoosiers. They want this to be done. We need to give this loud and clear efforts and requests to our legislatures, and they will be on board. And I'm very optimistic this year. The momentum is in our side, and with God's grace, we shall get it done. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Next, I'm delighted to introduce Anita Joshi of the Greater Indianapolis Hindu Community.
So, as she said, my name is Dr. Anita Joshi, and I am not only a member of the Hindu Temple of Central Indiana and Hoosier Hindu, but I am a pediatrician and a physician. And I want my children and my patients to grow up in a state where love predominates. Hate is not a Hoosier value. As a Hoosier, the very idea that my state is only one of 5 that doesn't have such legislation is distressing. As a physician in a rural community, I see the competing interests for jobs and economic security that our rural brothers and sisters are suffering from. We are competing for jobs and trying to bring businesses into Indiana to address the needs not only of the city population, but of the rural communities. These communities lack resources because they lack a corporate base. Why would I bring my company to this climate if it is not inclusive, loving, caring, supportive, and protective? This legislative body needs to value and have faith and trust in our law enforcement community and give them the tools that they are requesting to prosecute hate crimes in a way that protects every Hoosier. We need this bill for business growth, for our reputation as a state, and because we need to stand on the right side of history. Hoosiers value love. I have seen that in all my 25 years in this state. I came from the East Coast originally with an expectation that this was just cornfields and soybean fields. And people here have great heart, great power, and great ability. And we want to promote that in every single one of our citizens. Thank you.
We have just a few speakers left, and next I want to introduce Rabbi Brett Krieger.
It is a great honor to add my voice to the voices that have come before, and to add my voice to yours. Thank you for being here. Let us not forget the core reason why we are here, why we gather today, and why we put pressure, exert influence on our legislators. We gather because from every corner of the city, rural, urban, from every denominational background, we share a firm belief in the pursuit of justice. This belief transcends party differences. It transcends theological differences as well that often divide us. But I stand here today to affirm not only my own belief and the belief of the Jewish community in the pursuit of justice, but also my people's history, Jewish history, which has testified time and time again to the dangers of unchecked and unacknowledged prejudice and hatred. As we pursue justice, that means that there is no room in a liberal or a conservative Indiana for crimes committed solely because victims have a different skin color or a different faith, or they are gay or lesbian or identify themselves in any other particular way. There is no room for hatred. There is no room in Indiana for looking the other way when these crimes take place, for underreporting them or not reporting them at all. There is no room for hatred. And while, yes, we can acknowledge that police enforcement, that is not the only answer to preventing bias crimes, this is a legislation, as you've heard before, that is long overdue to provide us with recognition and respect and to deter those who would overhaul this state to celebrate only one faith tradition, acknowledge only one hierarchy of skin color, or accept only their own gender identity. The Jewish community, representing congregations and agencies and schools and centers across the state. We speak with the voice of thousands of constituents and donors and voters, and we stand firm in our commitment to hate crimes legislation, which has proven very effective in other states, and the lack of which has been a moral stain on our great state of Indiana. As you can see with the wonderful crowd that stands around me and looking around in this wonderful gathering, we are diverse and we are growing. Our message to our legislators is that in order to keep ourselves diverse and growing, that we need to recognize the ways in which we have been unwelcoming to those who make us stronger. In the words of President Bill Clinton when he expanded the hate crimes legislation of our country, these particular crimes leave a lasting scar, not only on the victims, but on the larger community. They are acts of violence against America itself. And there is no room in Indiana for that kind of hatred. Thank you.
And next, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Jamie Roberts. Jamie?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jamie Roberts, and what I have to say is most definitely twofold. I come to you as a community member, as a woman, as a black woman, as a Latino woman. I'm Puerto Rican as well, and as a member of the LGBTQ community. So with that, as you can hear, lots of intersecting identities, knowing that hate could come to my door, or bias could come to my door, and nothing in Indiana would protect me because of that is hurtful. But in my life's work, youth work, I happen to work at Indiana Youth Group right now, which is IYG. And IYG served last year 720 unique youth, Hoosier youth. I like to tell my kids that everything's going to be okay. But in reality, everything is not always going to be okay. IYG cannot be the only place in Indianapolis that queer youth can come to feel safe. When they walk out of our four walls, we would like them to know that Indiana has their back, that they can be safe, that IYG is not... I feel like a preacher. IYG is not the only place that they should feel to come to seek refuge. We're only open a few hours a week for them for 3 days. And out of those 3 days, they clamor to our doors and they come there for safety, for food, for shelter, just to be welcomed and to feel safe. And we should not be the only place that, I'm not going to say we are the only place, but IYG, we're known for it. 30 years of the running, we have been here to offer that solace and refuge for youth. But again, when they walk out of our doors, we cannot guarantee anything. But if hate or bias did come to their doorstep or to their school or wherever they happen to frequent in the state of Indiana, they need to know that they are safe, they will be protected, and at the very least, they will be considered humans for who they are and not be judged by who they love, what they look like, or any sort of ability or disability they may have. Yesterday, we celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King Day. If you believe in his principles and if you believe in his ideals today, as you did yesterday, it's very simple to pass a bill like the one before us. Thank you.
Nice job. Trevor, you're next. And next, I'd like to introduce Trevor Baldwin of the Indiana Association of the Deaf. Here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Trevor Baldwin, and I am coming here to represent the IAD, the Indiana Association of the Deaf. I represent the deaf community, and I feel like we have brought our heart here, and we are excited to be here. Before I start commenting, I want to say thank you to everybody for coming. It's really an inspiration for everybody to be here. We see your support, and as we keep going, we continue to see, and we hope that legislation gets passed. Thank you. I couldn't hear your clapping, so I didn't hear that you were, so I'm almost paused and I look up and I was surprised. So deaf people, we clap like this, But I also wanted to make a comment and really kind of put us out there as the deaf community, our experiences, our feelings, and our heart. So often deaf people see hate crime as happen, and we experience hate crimes happen, but we really want this legislation to pass. We are fed up and we disagree with all of the hate that's happening, but we believe that Indiana can do better. And we know that we can progress forward, and sometimes we feel stuck, but we are going to fight, and we are going to believe that this will happen. It doesn't matter if we are deaf or if we are hearing, or if we are, this is past gender and race and any other type of barrier that exists. We come together and we express progress. And so this part needs to change. So over and over and over, thank you so much. Often deaf people, specifically, we are victims of hate crimes, and we are unable to speak out about it. People are unaware of the experiences that we have and tend to be shocked when we express our experiences. Most of the time, as a deaf person, we have a barrier, which is the most important one, which is communication. So we lack the ability to communicate and let the police know, or our neighbors know, or friends know about abuse that might be happening, or other things. And people label it other things like racial abuse or discrimination and all that stuff, but they don't really understand the experiences that we have because we're unable to communicate that fully. So really, we've had enough of this hate crime, right? You believe that? We're here to support the legislation, and we've had enough. Honestly, more and more we see hate crimes existing in Indiana, and we believe that we can stop that. And we move to do something, move to activate, and move to support change. So enough is enough. We're done with it, and the time is now to move forward and to progress. Thank you. So again, hate crimes itself, this legislation will benefit everyone in our community as we progress forward, as we help each other and we move forward. And to be honest, I have so much more to say, and I know that we all experience oppression and any type of bigotry or whatnot. We experience that, but we want to experience love, and we want to rebuke the other things, and we want to continue to love each other. So we say thank you so much.
And thank you for staying with us today. We just have a couple speakers left. And next up is Kyle Castile of the Indiana Youth Group. Kyle?
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Wait. Thank you. My name is Kyle Castile, and I am a gay man. I've been out since I was 14, and I've lived in Indiana all my life. And I take as much pride in being a Hoosier as I do in my choice to live openly in my identity. Today, I'd like to talk to you about why. You see, I turn 24 next month. And many in my generation right now are thinking about where we want to put down the roots that we'll have for the rest of our lives. And so many people that I know, so many people in my generation are choosing to leave Indiana for opportunities elsewhere. My best friend, in fact, just came to visit me for the holidays, and from her new home in Minneapolis. And she grew up in the same small Indiana town that I did. She was our valedictorian. She was a 21st century scholar who went to Purdue. But as soon as she graduated, she decided to move away because she felt that Indiana was not the place she wanted to build her home. And so as we were catching up, she said to me, not for the first time, "Kyle, why do you still live here?" And I laughed. Like I said, I'm a proud Hoosier, but I can't pretend that I haven't asked myself that same question. I have to tell you, sometimes it feels like this state doesn't want young people like me here. Rather, it feels like our leaders do not want us here. Now, these leaders talk a big game about stopping the brain drain, about ignoring divisive social issues for economic development and opportunity. But time and time again, Indiana becomes its own worst enemy when we send a message to the rest of the country that only certain kinds of people are welcome here. So here we are for one more session, asking these same leaders to finally join the 45 other states in the Union who already have comprehensive hate crimes protections on the books. And though it's far from the first time we've had this debate, I know I'm not the only person who's not quite sure it will be the last. So, why am I still living here? I'm proud to be a Hoosier because despite every setback and obstacle, we're here today. We still show up through the bitter cold and the snow to demand our leaders take action. Now, it's not easy, and it never has been easy. But the hardworking people of this state know the lesson that our leaders sometimes forget, which is that if Indiana is going to be a state that works, we need to be a state that works for everyone. So today, I have a simple message for this assembly and for Governor Holcomb. I am still here. I am a young professional. I am a proud gay Hoosier. And I am not going anywhere. And so I implore you to act this session to pass a hate crimes law that sends the message that Indiana can be home for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, I'd like to introduce Adrian Slash of the Indianapolis Urban League and the Exchange. Adrian?
This is a good location for me. Okay. So greetings, everyone. On behalf of the Indianapolis Urban League and the organization that I represent, they're young professionals. I'm really happy to be here today. We have been gearing up for talking about hate crimes like nobody's business with the Exchange. As young professionals in the city of Indianapolis, we cannot believe that in 2018, the things that we thought were taken care of when we were growing up are still issues that are unprotected. We cannot believe that the events in Charlottesville actually happened and that we had to hold a meeting entitled, "What Happens If Charlottesville Comes Here?" We cannot believe that there is still an opportunity for hate to breed bigger and better all across our state. And for those reasons, we're excited to be a part of this coalition. We are happy to continue to advocate on behalf of African American and other disadvantaged populations. We can only do that, though, if we can guarantee to people that this is really a safe place. This is really a place for opportunity. This is really a place to put down your roots. Just as others have said, young people come to cities where opportunity lives. Young people of color come to a city where real opportunity lives. And young people only feel comfortable in environments where they know that when they apply, they're welcome. And so we're working hard on that at the Urban League, but we really need to support our prosecutors. We need to support law enforcement in making sure that they can care for us when we go home from work, that they can care for us when we are here and we're just trying to enjoy ourselves, and that we are not going to be predated. People can't chase us down. They can't look for us because of our race. They can't look for us because of our ethnicity. They can't look at us because of our lifestyle. They can't look at us because of who we love. They can't look at us because of who our religion is. They can only look for us because they love us. And so, you know, yesterday we all lived inside of the King's dream. We have to continue to carry that forward, and I can be really honest. I started our meeting yesterday asking people if they had a question they could ask Dr. King today, what would it be? And the first question that someone repeated out loud was, how are we doing today? And as I stand here today on behalf of support for hate crimes legislation, I can only believe that he'd be standing here strong asking for the same thing, but he'd be disappointed that it's 2018 and we're still asking. So, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And next is Rima Shaheed of the Women for Change Indiana.
In November 2016, Indiana women felt that the divisiveness prevalent at a time had potential to tear our national fabric and came together to drive home that we need change. And that is how Women for Change was started. We as a nation not only owe our social progress to these ideals, but also our economic progress, a national fabric that has historically been grounded in civility, equality, and economic opportunity. To further strengthen these ideals within our state, the most fundamental change is to get Indiana a hate crime bill. Indiana, it is time for you to be on the right side of history and for our state to protect her citizens. Indiana, join the other 45 states that protect their citizens by passing a bias crime legislation, sending a clear message that we as a state and people do not stand for and will not tolerate religious, racial, and gender-motivated crimes, and that we as a state understand that such a law is paramount for the welfare of our community and for the promotion of non-discrimination and open-mindedness. I believe that one of the biggest constituencies that will be the beneficiary of this law will be women, as most crimes against women, including rape, sexual assault, murder, and domestic violence, are motivated by deeply entrenched misogyny and should be considered hate crimes. This law is very important because it would give judges the discretion on each individual case. Let's trust our judicial system to ensure crimes motivated by hate and biases get their due punishment when necessary. Even if you were to put aside the humanitarian and social value of this law for a moment, it is beneficial purely from an economic and impact standpoints of the absence of this law acts as an impediment to investment for socially conscious companies and brand in our state. If we truly want to take Indiana to the next level, if we truly want a state that works, this is how it starts. Passing this fundamental law to Indiana is fundamental to Indiana's economic growth, future growth, and protection of her 6.3 million citizens. It is time.
Thank you so much for being here today. Now, David and I will just have some quick closing comments. David?
Okay. All right, I want to close this out. So first of all, thank you all again for being here. If folks are able to stay around this afternoon, our legislators will be on the floor in a little bit, and we will be here to help you try to talk to them if you're willing and able to do that. But most of all, you can hear is starting to get loud in the State House. I want to try to drown that out. You've been with us here for an hour, but it's time to stand up. It's time to get on your feet. It's time to hold up those signs. It's time to let folks in this building know that this is the year to pass hate crimes legislation. You heard behind you folks from every walk of life, every community, every organization, from all different backgrounds, faith communities. We're all standing together to say this is the year to pass hate crimes legislation. It is 2018. It is time for Indiana to remove itself from the list of 5 states around the country that does not have one of these laws. Polls were conducted before the legislative session, and every one of them comes back and says the majority of Hoosiers agree with us. It is time to pass a hate crimes law. But we need you. We need you here at the State House. We need you to talk to your friends. We need you to pick up the phone. We need you to send emails, because as optimistic as we have been this morning, there are people who will be picking up those phones and saying, do not pass this law. We don't need this. It's bad. It is time for us to stand up and to say, no, you are wrong, it is good, and we need this. We need this for all of us. So be the support for all of us. Let's be our own voices, and let's finally say that it is time to add Indiana and to pass a hate crimes law. Thank you all very much.
And with that, I want to thank everybody for being here today. Your support, as David mentioned, is incredibly needed. At our resource table, we have some note cards in case you want to write a note to your senator, and we can distribute that for you. As David mentioned, we need you contacting legislators. We will alert you when the hearing is scheduled. We need people being active on that front. As we know, hate crimes are meant to send a message of fear, hatred, and intolerance. They can and do tear apart the fabric of communities that experience them. Across Indiana, we've been hearing about increasing numbers of hate crimes occurring. We've seen the number of hate-based groups increase as well across the state. Let's send a message once and for all that we don't welcome those groups here, and we as a state will not tolerate hatred and bigotry in any form any longer. Thank you for coming here today. Thank you for those of you who have grown by participating as part of the Alliance. I am so happy with this great group that's here, the speakers that we were able to get. Thank you for being here. Let's get a hate crime law passed in 2018. Enough is enough. Thank you.
These reminded me of like Independence Day before they like.
Thank you. Oh, I kept messing up your name. I kept thinking you were Michelle, and it just never could get my brain straight. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
You as well. Very good.
Gotta go, yeah. Come on. Come through here.